fourth point in the mini booklet. And that's the use of brackets. They're used to compare words that share some relationship. Again, this is a quick overview. We'll be practicing these phonograms rules in the next little inset. The last topic, major topic on teaching spelling using phonograms and rules, the bottom of the page, is called syllable division. Syllables are divided by a single space. Again, so on this page we've talked about the overview, the materials for both levels, primary and intermediate, the spelling list, which is the extended Ayers word list, the primary spelling vocabulary notebook, the intermediate spelling vocabulary notebook. We've briefly discussed the 29 rules and how they're introduced as they apply to the word that's being learned. And then a brief description of the spelling marking system, which may seem a little mysterious, but once in practice, I think many of the questions can be answered as we go along. And then the final topic under the spelling process is the syllable division. Hare Krishna. So now what we want to do is go into... We're going to now apply the spelling marking system to the beginning of the spelling words. The spelling notebook includes alphabetized sections of words that are graded according to difficulty. And the first section of words is marked A through G, and after that, the sections are H through letter Z. Letter Z words in the Ayers spelling extended word list are first-year college words. And again, the words that are presented to the children at the very beginning are high-frequency words that they're familiar with in the English language and appear repeatedly. So now what I will do, you see here on the little sample page here, you see A through G, and I will explain in detail the first spelling word that the child is given. And we'll go to a great deal of detail on this. And then after that, on a separate little clip, we'll do 10 words. We'll go more quickly at that point. Eventually, when the child and the teacher know the system thoroughly, the spelling list should be presented in about 10 to 15 minutes. So it's not a great deal of time. And at the same time, integrated learning takes place. The spelling list is not the only objective. You'll see how many aspects of language are integrated through the spelling list. All right? So now we will begin. And we were now introducing how we apply the spelling phonograms and the marking system to the presentation of a spelling word. Right, so I will now draw a line across the top. This is my top line. And here's my bottom line. The students do not have a speller. They do not have a book of the words. Their spelling book will be the words that they enter into their little notebooks that they have heard from dictation. The purpose of this process is so that the child connects the spoken word with the written word. Right? Okay. Hare Krishna. We'll have to stop because Shankar's delivering quite a bit. To explain, the first spelling word is the word me. The word is pronounced for the child, and as I was saying earlier, the child does not have his own speller. His written notebook will become his spelling book. And it is really important that it is done nicely because this is what he will be using to study. The perception of the words must be clear. Obviously, then the handwriting has to be clear and the spelling has to be correct. What happens if a child has a speller, he will look at the word, not necessarily hear it, copy it, and just have to memorize it, perhaps not even understand its meaning in context. So that's usually what spellers are like. They learn a certain number of words a week, but this spelling system is completely different, and you'll see again how it integrates the phonograms, correct handwriting, grammar, and eventually application and writing. The whole thing is integrated. And of course, as devotees, we use senses that remind us of Krishna. So that's where we add our Krishna consciousness here at this point, right? So the first word that we will do together is the word me. Now the word me is a word that takes the place of a person's name. And we will use the word now in a simple Krishna conscious sentence so that the child will understand the word in context. Krishna, please bless me. Now me, does it have to refer to just me? The word me could refer to someone else who is speaking, right? So this word, me, has the job of taking the place of a person's name. It has a job. And the word me has the job of taking place of my name at this point. Krishna, please bless me. All right? So will the students please repeat the word me?
Me.
Very good. Now we're going to break down the sounds of the word me. And we will describe them in terms of phonograms that are consonants, phonograms that are vowels, and we also indicate phonograms that are fixed combinations. And in the case of any of the 29 pronunciation rules that may apply to this word, we not only explain that rule, but we mark it. So you can see the word has many, many facets of understanding at this point. All of this is done. Initially, it takes a little more time, but eventually, a spelling list, which is 10 words a day, can be done in 10 to 15 minutes. Right now, we're going slowly so that everybody, including the beginning student, has a clear understanding of what is required. All right? So now, I'll put down my board. We will hold up our hand. You can hold up your right hand. And we will touch a finger for each phonogram that's in the word me. All right? So the first sound we hear in the word me is the sound mm. This phonogram sound is the consonant phonogram mm. It's a consonant. Mm. The second sound we hear in the word e is the vowel phonogram e. In this case, we hear it saying its sound e. E. So for each phonogram, it can be a consonant phonogram, it can be a vowel phonogram, it can be a fixed combination. We represent it by touching the finger on the hand. So let us do that again together. E. And say the word again. Me. Now this word has a spelling pronunciation rule that's very important. The sound E is the vowel's name, and if it's a vowel at the end of a syllable or a short word, usually a vowel says its name. That is called rule number 4. So when we write this, we will now pick up our pencils, and with me, we will make the phonogram, the written representation of the sound. Please use pencils. Please use pencils. You have them here. You have the mechanical pencils. Both of you should be using pencils. All right? All right? We begin the phonogram. We've practiced our phonograms. We've practiced our handwriting. But we will repeat the process. The first phonogram, consonant begins at the midpoint, and we drop down a straight line. Please do that. And we go back up to the position 10, retrace, and we curve up to position 10, and we curve over to position 2. We drop down to the bass line again, not lifting the pencil, retrace up to 10, curve over to position 2, and drop down to the bass line. We have now written the first phonogram of our first spelling word. And we have learned. This is a consonant phonogram. And we have reviewed the positions for making it correctly. Our second phonogram in the word me is the vowel phonogram, e. But in the word me, we hear the sound e. All right? We will now make that, and if you recall, this one has a horizontal line that starts at the position 9 on the clock, right? We go across to 3 on the opposite side of the clock, and at that point, we push up to 2, curve up to the midpoint, curve around to 10, curve down around to 8, touching the bass line, and curving up to position 4. You now see we have written the word me, and we again review. We have 2 phonograms. The first one is the consonant m. The second phonogram is the vowel with 2 sounds, e. In this word, we pronounce it as e. Now there's a special rule for this that will indicate to us and to the child that it should be pronounced e, not e. And that rule is Rule 4. Rule 4 is marked with a short line directly below the vowel consonant, the vowel phonogram. A little bit of a space there, not exactly on the line. We underline e. And leaving a little bit of space on our paper, we make the phonogram r, lowercase r, to represent the word. I haven't really allowed enough space here. R, with a period. I'll have to do this again. Rule 4. Rule 4 in our pronunciation, spelling, and vocabulary list of 29 rules is the rule I just discussed. If a vowel at the end of a syllable or a short word makes its own name, says its own name, which it usually will do, we underline it. And the child will learn through repeated practice, through this marking system, to say e. He will not say He knows this rule, that at the end of a syllable or a short word, the vowel usually says its name. So I need to do this again because I didn't really allow enough space to put the 4. But the child has to write the pronunciation rule that accompanies this marking. Otherwise, he will not understand this underline. Okay? So let me do it again. We can review, do this together one more time. I'll just have to make my spacing a little bit narrower so we can accommodate, excuse me, the rule. Okay, again, the word me, let's say the sound as we write it, and each time we re-explain the positioning and the writing. Okay, the first phonogram is please repeat the sound. All right, we begin with we drop a line halfway, midpoint, down to the bass line, retrace up to 10, curve over to 2, drop down to the bass line, retrace up to 10, curve over to 2, and drop down to the bass line. We have constructed the consonant phonogram The second sound was e. That's made with the phonogram e. So we write that phonogram e. We have a midpoint horizontal line here, midpoint between the half space, that goes from 9 to 3. We push up to 2, come up midway, curve around to 10, drop down to 8, touch the bass line, and complete the phonogram at the position 4. So we've now written this word e. Now, just below the line, we draw a small horizontal line to underline that phonogram e. This is the marking for Rule 4. Again, we repeat, Rule 4 tells us that a vowel at the end of a syllable or a short word usually says its name. And here the name of this letter is E. So here we pronounce it E, and we leave a little space and we construct the phonogram R, representing an abbreviation for the rule, put a dot, meaning rule. And of course, remember the numerals are 1.5 spaces, right? So we make the numeral 4. Draw a straight line down, and we do a horizontal, and then we draw another line down to the baseline. So the first word in the Spalding spelling list is the word me. Everything is explained. The consonant phonogram M, the vowel phonogram E, underlined to show that at the end of this small word, it is pronounced E. And that is, students, what rule? Rule 4. All right. That is our first introduction to how a word is taught. Again, we review. We had to say the word, use it in a sentence, explain its grammatical function, and then we sounded it out first in terms of phonograms, each phonogram on a finger, and then we all together hear the sound, write it together, repeat it, and apply the rule if there's one that fits this word. Okay? Hare Krishna. So far so good? It's fun, isn't it? Isn't it amazing? It's fun learning a word like this. I don't know, I think just these boring spelling lists and memorize it. What have you done? 200 million words in the English language and you learn 10 a week in a spelling program with no system to it? That's like trying to brush an elephant with a tool. Now in the previous film clip, we have covered in detail how to do the first word in this Ayres list. Each day, 10 words are presented. 10 words are presented a day, 30 words a week. So on the first day of the week, the second day of the week, and the third day of the week, each of those days, 10 words are presented. So that means within a week's time, 30 words are presented. And the last 2 days, the teacher helps the child review. And on the final day of the week, a test is given. By that time, the child has to have mastered the proper spelling, marking, and syllables for that word. Right? So testing is at the end of the week. So each week, 30 words, 30 words, 30 words. And the system gets more elaborate because you'll see the words get bigger, the markings are all there. And after a short time, the child has quite a detailed understanding of what's happening. Okay. So now we will cover 9 more words. These will be the first 10 words the child is exposed to. And it doesn't have to be just a beginning learner. Even an adult usually has to go through these first 10 words just to learn the marking system. Obviously, an adult will know how to spell me, do, and you'll even get children that will be able to spell me, do, and go, and say, why do I have to do this? I know this word. And then you have to say to them, we're teaching you the marking system. Right? And we show you on easy words. We obviously would start with a word like chandelier. If we have to learn a system, learn it on something easy, not on something too hard. Then later, you can apply it to new, difficult words that you wish to spell. Okay, so we did the first word, me, extensively. The second spelling word that is presented is the word do. All right, now, remember the process? We say the word do, we do not write. We put our pencils down. We say the word do, repeat the word do.
Do.
I will now use the word do in a sentence. So listen carefully so you understand its meaning. The word do, the sentence I will use is a Krishna conscious sentence. Do you go to the temple? Right? Can you say that sentence with me? Do you go to the temple? All right. So the word do is an action word. It is part of the verb do go. Do you go to the temple? And I've used it in a sentence that asks a question. And the word is actually, the verb is broken up. Do go. We have, do you go to the temple? All right, now we're going to analyze the word do in terms of phonograms. So we have to hold up our hand. And we listen to the sounds, and with each phonogram sound, we touch a finger. So the first sound in the word do is do. And the second sound we hear in the word do is oo. So let's repeat those sounds. D, oo. Very good. Now this sound oo is written with the phonogram vowel a, o, oo. All right. The first sound I forgot to say, d, was the consonant d. The second sound was the vowel a, o, oo. Now again, if I say the word do, which sound did we hear? Did we hear the sound a? Did we hear the sound o?
No.
Did we hear the third sound oo?
Yes.
We heard the third sound for the vowel a, o, oo. Again, d, oo, third sound. Okay. Let us now write the phonograms as well as the marking system. It will indicate which of the sounds we heard. Because again, we are connecting the sound that we hear with the written form of that sound. Language is merely the written form of sound, just as music on a staff is the written form of a sound. That's all. Handwriting is merely the written symbol for a sound. And this system, the Spalding system, helps children understand that at a very early age. Okay. Start with our baseline here. So now, students, we are going to write the first consonant phonogram D. So please, we will review as we write. This phonogram starts at 2 o'clock. We start at position 2, just below midpoint, curve up over to midpoint, curve around to 10, curve around to 8, touch the baseline, curve up to 4. Now, without lifting the pencil, we go straight up past position 2 with a tall line that stops just before the top line. To retrace, sorry, I lifted it back down and touch the baseline. We should not lift the pencil, I'm sorry I did there. Our first consonant phonogram in the word do is D. Okay. The second sound is the vowel a, o, oo. We will now write it and repeat exactly what we do with our hand. The mind must tell the hand exactly how to make this letter precisely, so we can see the word clearly, and then we can see our spelling will be precise if our handwriting is precise. The next sound we heard is a, o, oo, and we will start at 2 o'clock for that phonogram, allowing enough space to the right so I can complete it. Start at 2 o'clock, go up to the midpoint, curving around to 10, curve back down to 8, touch the baseline, curve around to 4, and curve around back to 2, and we have written the word do. Okay? Now we indicated that this was the third sound of the phonogram of the word, the phonogram vowel a, o, oo. So just above that phonogram, we will write a small, in careful numerals again, 3. And that 3 tells us it's oo. So just like music, D, oo. There are no other rules for this particular. The marking system is strictly restricted to a numeral above a phonogram that makes one or more sound. We do not mark a 1 for any first or only sounds. We only write numerals if there is more than one sound. Okay? 2. Any questions? You see, it's pretty self-explanatory after a while. You do it a few times and then it's quite obvious. It looks difficult, but like anything else, once you start doing it, it's not difficult. And it's scientific. Okay? All right? Our next spelling word is the word and. So we will now put down our pencils. I will say the word and, asking you to repeat the word and. And. I will use it in a simple Krishna conscious sentence. Krishna and Balaram play in the forest. Krishna and Balaram play in the forest. The word and has a job. It joins two subjects. The two subjects are Krishna
Krishna
and Balaram. Okay, it's a joining word. It connects them. It's a joining word, and. All right. This word has three sounds. We will say them on our hand and touch each sound. Are we ready? A. The vowel sound A. The next consonant sound and the last consonant sound D. Let's say them again. A. D. All right, let's try to blend it a little more quickly. And. All right, now we will write those phonogram sounds again. The written form is merely the representation of the sounds we heard. So that's the value of the phonogram, because the phonogram is the written formation of the sound. You can see how that helps spelling by sounding out each letter and also reading rapidly. Children just see the phonograms and they can decode after a while. With a little practice, they can decode words very, very quickly. Big words they've never even encountered. Okay, our first phonogram is the vowel sound A. Okay, and it is its first sound, remember? A, its first sound. A. Now, we will start at 2 o'clock again, and just below midpoint, we'll curve up to the midpoint and curve around to 10, and nicely curve around to 8, and nicely curve down to the base and back to 4, and stop at that point without lifting the pencil. Go back up to point with a straight line and touching at point 2. Retrace, dropping your straight line down to the baseline. You have now written the phonogram, the vowel phonogram, A, The first sound is A. We do not mark the first sound with a numeral. That's not necessary. If the phonogram has only one sound, or we're using its first sound of many, we do not indicate with a 1. We only put the numbers 2, 3, or 4, or up to 6 if there are more sounds that have to be designated with those numbers. Okay? So we do not need to put a 1 here. Okay? Our next sound was the consonant phonogram. That consonant phonogram begins with a straight line. So at midpoint, we drop a straight line to the baseline. We retrace without lifting the pencil up to position 10. Curve up to the midpoint, curve over to 2, and then we drop with a straight line down to the baseline. Now we have two phonograms. Okay, 2. The first one's the vowel. The second one is the consonant. The third sound we heard in the word and is the phonogram D. Okay, this is a consonant phonogram that makes only one sound. It's the only sound. So we do not need to number that one either. This also starts at 2 o'clock. So we start at position 2. We curve up over to midpoint, curve around to 10, curve back down to 8, touch the baseline, curve up to 4. And exactly as we did in A, we go straight up, touching the 2, and continue to just below the point at the top. Go to the top line, retrace without lifting the pencil, and bring this straight line down to the baseline. So now we have and. This word has no markings. So we tell the children the word and has no markings. It has no numerals. It has no rule numbers. And. Okay. The next spelling word is the word go. So now we may put our pencils down. Please repeat the word go. Go. This word we will now use in a Krishna conscious sentence. Yes, I do go to the temple. Yes, I do go to the temple. All right? This word is also action word, go. And it is, in this case, again, linked with the word do go. It's part of an action phrase, go. We will now sound out the phonograms in this very short word on our hand. All right, are we ready? The first sound in go is g. G. the consonant sound, K. Right? The second sound is the vowel sound, O. So let's say them again. G. O. Right, now this phonogram, the vowel sound, is written with the phonogram A, O, U. And which sound did we hear in the word go? Which sound did we hear? Did we hear A? Did we hear O? Or did we hear U? O, we heard the second sound. And is O the name of this letter? In this phonogram? O, U. Is that the name of the letter?
Yes.
Yes, that's the name of the letter. O, U. All right. So which sound was that? The second sound, and it's the name of the letter. So what rule will this be? What rule? What rule? When the letter says its name at the end of it.
Before?
Rule number 4. Yes, you remembered rule number 4. A vowel at the end of a short word or a syllable usually says its name. In the word do, it didn't.
Yes.
But in this word go, it does. It usually says its name. So now we're going to write the phonogram representations of the sounds we just made, right? The written word represents the sounds. I'm going to make this narrow so we can show rule 4 because we now have repeated rule 4. We've seen it, we had it in the word me. Now rule 4 applies to the word go. It did not apply to the word do. All right, we start with the first consonant, g, at 2 o'clock. We curve up to midpoint, over to 10. Down to 8, touching the bass line, curve up to 4. Go straight up, connecting at point 2. Then from this point, without lifting the pencil, we drop down to equidistant, 1 space below the line. And at position 4, we start to curve again. And we round that up to point position 8. So we have now written the phonogram, consonant phonogram, g. The first sound we heard was g. This phonogram makes 2 sounds, g, j. But we heard the sound g. G. It's a consonant phonogram that makes 2 sounds, but the sound in this word is g. All right. The next sound we heard is o. And we know that it was represented with the vowel consonant, the vowel phonogram, a, o, u. So we will now write that phonogram starting at 2 o'clock. A, o, u. We'll start at 2, curve up to the midpoint, curve around to 10, drop down to 8, touch the bass line, curve to 4, and close it back up at 2. Now, who remembers what we do in rule number 4? If the vowel says its name, how do we indicate that? Does anybody remember how we indicated, how we mark? We underline it, correct. We underline a vowel that says its name at the end of a syllable or a short word. And what must we do to show that we know this rule? What must we do? Right, we must write the rule next to the word. So we write the lowercase phonogram r, representing the word rule. As it goes to 10 and over to 2. We put a full stop, representing an abbreviation. And next to that, we write the numeral 4. That's a 1.5 space symbol. We start a little bit above midpoint, come down with a vertical. Okay, then we go across with a short horizontal. At this point, we pick up the pencil and we come down with another vertical to the base line. Again, numerals are 1.5 spaces tall so that the 1 and the 0 are not confused with L's and O's. Go. G, O, underline A, O, U, because it's used, the second sound is O, rule 4. All right, so far so good? Our next word in the list is the word at. At. Okay? At. We'll put our pencils down. Please, we'll repeat the word at together. Say the word at. At. All right? I will use the word in a Krishna conscious sentence. At 4:30, the devotees go to Mangala Arati. At 4:30, the devotees go to Mangala Arati. Okay, at has a very important job. It shows relationship. It shows the relationship between the time and the action. Right? So it's a relationship word. The action is go, right? And the time is 4:30. So at is a relationship word. It tells us when the devotees go to Mangala Arati. Now let us sound those phonograms out on our hand. Okay. Let's say the word slowly so we hear the sounds. Ah. And the next sound we heard was t. So we have only two sounds. The first sound was the vowel sound ah. The second sound was the consonant sound t. So we have two phonograms. A vowel sound first, a consonant sound. Now when we show those sounds in written form, we represent those sounds in written form. And that produces the spelling of that word. Do you see now how simple the connection is between the sound and its written form? Once the child knows the phonograms, and he knows how to mark any rules or any numerals. So we draw our upper line here. You have it already on your paper. I'll have to show it. And then I draw my baseline. Right? So the first phonogram is the vowel sound a. Okay, it is the phonogram a, a. Which sound was it? At first sound. So do we need to mark this one? No, no markings. No markings. We start at 2 o'clock, go from 2 up to midpoint, over to 10, down to 8, touch the bass line, around to 4. We go straight up, connecting to the 2 position, retrace that straight line and drop down, touching the bass line. So we have now again repeated the vowel sound a, in its written form to show a, the first sound. The second sound is t. T is a tall letter. It's a consonant sound. Makes only one sound. So will we need to number this one? No. One sound, no need to number. So again, we draw a tall line, tall straight line, starting just below the line. Drop it down to the base line. At this point, we may lift the pencil to put the little cross piece, a very short cross piece. It's above midpoint. It's not too wide. Okay? We have now written the word at. 2 phonograms, vowel sound a, consonant sound t. Do we have any markings? No. So we say no markings. Okay, this is an easy pattern. You see, by constantly reviewing also the instructions for handwriting, that as the student goes, the student is constantly being reminded of keeping his handwriting precise, so that his speller becomes a very beautiful reference book. Pages should be beautiful. And that's why we do not like to use the metal spiral books, because as they turn the pages and practice them, usually those spirals tear the top and bottom. So we insist on pages that have been stitched as opposed to ones that have had the rings, because then the book starts to look shabby, right? Because they have to review these words and drill them every day. Practice saying them quickly up and down and left and right. So by the end of the week, they can say 30 words at a flash. It's very nice. Nice system, isn't it? Very nice system. Is it so difficult? Not at all. Okay, our next spelling word after at is the word an. Okay, an. All right, so we'll put down our pencils. Mataji will use the word an in a Krishna conscious sentence. I wish to offer an apple to the deity. An. Okay, please repeat the word an. An. All right. This word has a job. It's called an article. In English, articles are used before nouns usually. And there are 3 of them: a, an, and the. An is used if the next word starts with a vowel, so that the sounds do not merge or blend. All right? So it's categorized as an article. It's in the larger category of words that describe. So we'll call it the article an. Okay? And let us hear the sounds on our hand. All right? The first sound is a. The vowel sound a. The second sound here is the consonant sound. So let's say them again. A. The first vowel sound is shown by the phonogram a, r. Which of those three sounds did we use in the word an? The first sound, a. Okay? So will we need to number that? No. So we just have two phonograms in the word an. An is an article. Okay? So we'll draw our lines. We write the first vowel phonogram starting at 2 o'clock. 2, reach up to midpoint, around to 10, down to 8, touching the bass line, curve around to 4, go straight up connecting to point 2, and we drop a straight line down to the bass line. Now you see after a while, once the children have had to repeat certain letters quite often, then the handwriting, just the thought process becomes part of it, like it's a mantra in their minds. So they're reminded. That's why at the beginning I repeat this all the time, so that they start to hear that every time they write a letter. You know, okay? Or a phonogram, I should say, phonogram. The next sound we heard was Is it consonant?
Yes.
It makes only one sound. Do we need to mark it then? No, we don't. It begins with a straight line. So we draw from midpoint, a straight line down to the bass line. We retrace up to 10 o'clock, curve over to 2, and drop back down to the bass line. And. Do we have any markings in this word?
No.
No. So this word we would say no markings. No rule on number, no rules to write, no numbers to write, no markings. Okay. Our next spelling word is another article. It is the article, a single letter article, A. A. A is also used before words. Okay. So please let us repeat. Is that what the next word is? I have my glasses on. At. Oh, I skipped it. I'm sorry. The next word is on. I should put my glasses on. And, you know, it's difficult because if I look away, the glasses are... We did at, on. I'm sorry. I skipped the word on. Right? After at. I think I gave you the word and it was the word on. Or, pardon me, my... It was at. All right, go at. On is our next word, not the word a. All right, on. Okay. So we will use, I have to keep taking this off and on. Why don't you use the word on in a sentence? All right. Please place a flower on the offering plate. Please place a flower on the offering plate. All right, now the word on is also a relationship word. It shows us the relationship between the plate and the action word, place. Where do we place it? We place it on the plate. It shows the relationship between the word, plate, and the action word, place. Let us now hear those sounds and say them and touch our hands to indicate the phonograms. The first sound we hear is ah. Okay, that's a vowel sound from ah, oh. Okay. The second sound we hear is It's the consonant sound, one sound. All right. So ah. All right. Now let us write the phonograms, which are symbol representations of the sounds we just heard. So we will hear, say, see, and write. This is called multisensory, right? This is the 70% we talked about before. Hearing, seeing, saying, and writing. This is why Spalding has integrated those statistics into her program. That gives a 70% retention. Anything less than that will be 10 or 20, maybe 30. So by hearing, seeing, saying, and writing simultaneously, the child is not allowed to write independently ahead. We all do it together. Okay? So the first sound in ah is on, is ah, o, u. The first sound, ah. Okay, we start at 2 o'clock. It's a clock place letter. Curve around to the midpoint. Curve back down to 10. Curve down to 8. Touching the bass line. Curve around to 4. Continue curving back to 2. And we make the vowel phonogram ah, o, u. Since it's the first sound, we do not need to put Merle 1. Our second sound is n, the consonant sound n. It begins, it's a straight line, begins with a straight line. So we start at midpoint, we drop down to the bass line with a vertical, retrace up to the position at 10, start curving at 10, to the midpoint, over to 2, and then we drop down to the bass line with a straight line. We have now written the relationship word on, no markings. Okay, so far so good. You see, your questions I think will get answered as you do it. It looks difficult, but it's not at all. And it actually teaches so much. It teaches so much. Such a connection, such a wonderful system. Okay, the next word we have in our spelling list is the article a. Right, I skipped ahead to that one. A is one of 3 special words we use in English. Right, they're called articles a, and the. All right, I will use it now in a sentence. A devotee is always merciful. A devotee is always merciful. All right, now we will touch our hand to say the sound we hear. We hear only one vowel sound, and we hear the sound a. And this is represented with the phonogram a, ah. Which sound did we pronounce? Which one? The second sound. And that's also what? It's a vowel, and what else is it?
Rule 4.
It's the name of the letter, right? Rule 4. See, she already remembered. Right, it's the name of the letter. So if a word, if a syllable or a short word, if the vowel says its name, it's rule 4. And what do we do to that? And what else do we do? We underline the vowel that says its name. Very good. See, already they've got rule 4 down. They didn't have to memorize it. See, the rules are not memorized separately. They're just taught. After about 2 or 3 times, they're understood. Right? They're taught through context, not through isolated practice. Okay? So we will now write the phonogram a, and we know in the word a. And we don't want to use the schwa sound and say It happens. Almost every vowel sounds like If the English is not properly pronounced, the chances for proper spelling go down. So the stress is on proper pronunciation, so the spelling is correct, the reading is correct, and the speaking is proper. If everybody speaks as apple, it just becomes slurred, right?
Yes.
Slurred. All right, so this phonogram begins at 2 o'clock. Begins at 2 o'clock, curves around to midpoint, around to 10, down to 8, touch the bass line, back up to 4, straight up to 2, dropping down with the perpendicular to the bass line. We have and it says its name, so we underline it because it's all by itself. It's a word all by itself. We underline it with a short line. And a little bit over to the right, we write the lowercase phonogram r, up to 10, over to 2. We put a full stop to indicate this is an abbreviation for the word rule. A period shows this represents an abbreviation. And then we write the numeral 4. This is 1.5 space symbol. Dropping down with a straight line, go across with a horizontal. Pick up the pencil and drop down with another vertical to the baseline. So now we have the article a, Rule 4. Our next spelling word of the 10 presented in the first lesson is the word it. All right? Mataji will use the word it in a sentence that helps us think of Krishna. And we will just use a simple sentence. It is very important to remember Krishna. It is very important to remember Krishna. Let me think of another sentence. I have just read a book about Krishna. It is very exciting. So I've used two sentences here. It is very exciting. The word it replaces the word book, right? In other words, it takes the place. First I use the sentence, I have just read a book about Krishna. It is very exciting. So I don't say book again, so the word it in this second sentence takes the place of the word book. We didn't repeat the word book. So it is a word that takes the place of another naming word. So things don't get to be too repetitious. It. All right, now let us touch our hand as we sound out these phonograms. The first sound we heard was it. It. Okay. And the second sound we heard was t. Okay, let's say them together. It. All right, we heard two sounds. The first one is represented by the vowel phonogram it, I. Very good. It, I. And it's the first sound, right? So we don't mark this one. And the second one is the consonant sound t. T. So we'll have two phonograms, a vowel phonogram it and a consonant phonogram t. All right, so we will now write these. We will see, we will hear, see, say, and write. And remember, that puts us in the 70% category of retention. That's the brilliance of the Spalding program. Hearing, seeing, saying, and writing. And that is called multi-sensory instruction, which is one of the, we didn't go over that again in our book, but is one of the features of strong educational philosophy, multi-sensory instruction. Okay. Our first phonogram is constructed, it, I, is constructed with a short straight line that begins midpoint. Straight line that you pull down to the baseline. At that point you pick up the pencil and just above straight line you place a small dot. It. Okay. You want to make sure the dot is directly above the vertical line. It's not to the right or to the left. The second phonogram is consonant T. It makes only one sound. It's a tall letter. It begins just below the upper line, top line. We drop a straight vertical line down to the base. Tall straight line. Stop. This one also we're allowed to pick up the pencil. For dots and horizontals, we are allowed to pick up the pencil. And just above the midpoint, we make a short horizontal line. Okay. We have now written the word it. Remember, it takes the place of a naming word. It, I used it again, sentence. Right? So now, do we mark anything? No markings. Another word that has no markings. It. And we're hearing a nice high bowl. Some background confirmation. All right, our next spelling word is the word is. Right, very good. Is. We will all say the word together when we put our pencils down. Please repeat the word is. Is. Very good. Is a word that is part of either a phrase that shows action or by itself, it just shows being. Something is a state of being. Is. Mataji will use it in a simple sentence for you. Radharani is merciful. Radharani is merciful. Right, so the word is shows us that Radharani is just the being. What is her nature? Her nature is, she is merciful, right? It doesn't show action. It can be used with an action word. But in this case, it's by itself. So it just shows a quality, a state of being. Radharani is merciful. Let's touch the sounds on our hand again. The first sound we heard is it. And the second sound we heard is z. very good. Now this phonogram is a consonant that makes two sounds. It is the consonant s, z. Which sound is it? It's the second sound. This consonant makes two sounds. And there's no particular rule. We just have to hear the word to know which one. Some phonograms that make more than one sound, there's a rule that will tell us which one has to be used. There's no rule. We just have to hear the word and remember which of the two sounds we heard and indicate that. This time, what will we have to probably do? We'll have to do what? We'll probably have to write a... I'll have to write a 2. Very good. We'll probably have to write a number because otherwise we won't know that we say z. We might say is. And that's not the word. The word is not is. The word is, the second sound. Right? So to mark it so we know how, just like music, right? Like music, which sound do we play on the piano or the flute? The note will tell us. The note will tell. So this is like a musical note. It makes the sound z. So the 2 tells us that. All right, we will now begin writing the sound form, the written forms for the phonogram sounds. The first phonogram sound is the vowel I. It's the first sound. Again, it's a short one-space letter. We drop the line down, straight line down to the base line, and we put a dot directly above it. And the next is the phonogram, consonant phonogram, z, second one, z. This one is a more complex one to write. It starts at 2 o'clock, goes up to the midpoint, curves to 10, then swings around, curves over to 4, reaches down to the base line, and curves up to 8. We've now written the word, the state of being word is, and we must, above it, write a small numeral 2, a little one. 2, to show that we pronounce it z. So this word is z. Now notice how there's a pattern that's being built. We just had the word it, and we had the word is, and you see how now we're seeing very short words being used, and a repetition of certain phonograms like a, it, I, and then but one new step. The last phonogram, t, had no number, but this one, 2-letter word, but now we add the number. So you'll see that little steps are built in, sequential learning as well. It's not just suddenly we jump into the deep end of the pool. Everything is done very logically, sequentially. So the next step is an easy one. It's not a giant leap. It's just one more little thing I need to learn, and I already have the information to make that step very easily, very logically. Actually, there are whole books in grammar written called PI, Programmed Instruction, and they practically can be done by the child alone. You know, they start with something very simple, and then the person automatically will know how to do that, and then the next step is just a little bit more difficult, but from what he learned from the previous step, he can make the next step on his own. Almost with no teacher. I've seen systems like that, you know, programmed instruction. So she actually practically does that in the way these words are presented. The next step builds on the previous step, but it's just a little bit more information, right? So that learning is easy steps, but gradually increasing. Okay? Is. Okay? Our next spelling word is the last word. We're down to the 10th word, and we finished our list after this one. The. All right, the word the. The. Oh, I'm sorry. See, without my problem is I put my glasses on, I can't see you, and then if I don't have them on, so it's the word she. Sorry, the comes in tomorrow's spelling list. The word she. All right. Manaji will use the word she. Now that we've say it one more time. She. She. We'll use it in a Krishna conscious sentence. When Radharani cooks, she makes wonderful preparations. So now we've seen what the word she does. It takes the place of the word Radharani. It refers to Radharani. We don't say Radharani's name twice. We don't say when Radharani cooks, Radharani makes wonderful preparations. We can for emphasis, but generally, instead of repeating the word twice and becoming monotonous, we use a pronoun or a word that takes the place of Radharani. So we say, when Radharani cooks, she makes wonderful preparations. Okay, she. Let us hear the words, sounds now on our hands, touch, and hear the sounds as we touch our fingers. The first sound we heard is shh. And the second sound, this is a fixed combination. This is the first time now we have a fixed combination. Before this, all of our phonograms have been either single letter vowels or single letter consonants. Now we have fixed combination, more than one letter in this phonogram. And the second sound we heard is E. So we have sh, E. So something new has been introduced now, right? In the first list, did you see what we have, a progression? We've had consonants, we've had vowels, we've had rule 4, we've had a numeral 2 presented, we've had a 3 presented, and now we're introduced to our first fixed combination. All right? So now we will write the forms that represent the sounds that we just heard. Okay? Again, we always stress with the child, we heard these sounds. Now what we're doing is we are creating the written form of those sounds. That's why it's called phonogram. Phono means sound, gram means write. We're writing a sound. We're not writing a letter that often has very little connection with the sound in a particular spelling word. Okay, so the first sound we heard was the phonogram sh. And if we recall from our phonograms, it's sh, the plain one. There were many fixed combinations for that sound. Actually, there are 5. 4 with a star and 1 is from another phonogram. It's the second sound. So which of the 5 is it? It's the sh, the plain one. Okay? So we begin first to make that one with 2 o'clock, up to midpoint, over to 10, curve around quickly to 4, curve around to the baseline, and curve back up to 8. This is a 2-letter fixed combination. We go near the top, drop a straight line down to the baseline, curve back up to 10, curve over to midpoint, over to 2, and drop a straight line down to the baseline. And we have written the phonogram. This is a 2-letter phonogram. It's made up of the letter SZ and the letter H. But we do not pronounce this way. Together, these create a fixed combination that is pronounced sh, and we indicate which one we did by saying the plain one. Now, what must we do with all phonograms that are made up of more than one letter? What must we do? Yes, we must underline them. The underline serves as an indication of a grouping. These are sounded together. This is a fixed combination. Shh, the plain one. And do you notice how nicely these letters appear when they're made according to the system? The clock reference points and straight lines. That's all we had to learn. All we had to learn was to perfect 2, 10, 8, 4 and make straight lines. Was that so difficult? And see how nicely the speller starts to look? The letters are very easily written and they're very easily read. And that helps spelling. As she says, a clear image of the word makes for a clear impression for spelling. And also for recognizing those forms on the printed page. If the handwriting doesn't look at all the way the printed page will, then the connection for reading is also disrupted. Because we're faced with printed material all the time. So we heard the first sound, shh. The second sound we heard was E. Very good. This phonogram is the vowel E. And which sound was it? Second sound. And what is it also? It's the name of the letter. Very good. It's the name of the letter. So we put a little horizontal line for E, goes straight across. Now watch this. Make a sharp point on this, not a rounded edge. Sharp point. like cutting an orange in half, okay? Curving up to 2, around to the top, down to 10, past the point of 9, come down to the baseline, come back up to 4. You want this to look like half of an orange or half of a circle, sharp here, not rounded, okay? Sh, E, and because this is a vowel that says its name at the end of a short word, what do we know about that?
Rule 4.
It's Rule 4. See, already we've had Rule 4 now 4 times. And what do we do to show Rule 4? How do we mark?
Underline.
We underline E to show that it's pronounced E, not sh. Right?
Yes.
It's pronounced sh, E. And what must we do?
4.
Right. We mark with the phonogram the full stop and a 4. And again, I did not space this nicely. This is not planning ahead here. Too compressed. Sorry. Rule 4. Sh, E. Rule number 4. A vowel at the end of a syllable, or standing by itself, usually says its name. The name of this letter is E. Sh, E. So look how much we have in a small word. Normally if a child tells you, well, I know how to write the word she. But will a Spalding child be able to tell you more?
Yes.
Will his understanding be significantly deeper?
Yes.
He can tell you this is a fixed combination and it's one of 5 sounds for sh. He can tell you this sound makes 2 sounds, it makes its name here, and he can explain Rule 4. And that's after just 10 words. Right? So we've had Rule 4 how many times? You see how sequentially she builds things. So now we've repeated Rule 4 and we've introduced a fixed combination. So in a first 10-word spelling list, you can see systematically building up, and she continues to do that all the way through. A systematic build-up, one new point on another, building on information that has already been learned and practically mastered. You can see, you were already saying Rule 4, underline, it's not that difficult. So that concludes the first spelling list of the Spalding phonograms. The entire extended Air spelling list is actually self-explanatory once one gets an understanding of the pattern that's being used. The words are presented, rule numbers are shown in the columns, and instructional tips are given in a 3rd column. So any teacher that has a grasp of just even the first 10 spelling words, as we've done here, can automatically follow the next 2,000 words, 2,300 words. There's not much difficulty. You just understand the system. The spelling word is given, the rule or rules are given, and the instructional tips are given. So the teacher knows what to say and why, and as well as how to explain it to the child if that's needed. So there's one important section here that's given in section A through G, which is the very first spelling section, that I now wish to cover in detail, because this is a very important understanding that most people who have proficiency in English do not know. Okay? And that you find here again in section A through G, and we are now going to teach that. In English, the phonogram E, as we had in the first word me, says its name, right? It says its name. But there are many instances in which the E at the end of a word is silent. All right? And in English, there are actually 5 situations, systematically, in which we can identify those silent E's. And Spalding has done that for us. She teaches the 5 silent E's. So now we are going to do them one at a time, starting with the first. The words that we will be covering are, the first word is time. The second 2 words that represent the second rule are have and blue. The third rule, the words we use were chance and charge. The fourth silent E, the word we use is little. And the fifth silent E, the word we will encounter is the word are. So these five, well actually it's 7 words, but for 2 rules we have 2 examples. We have 5 silent E rules to learn. And again, it looks a little intimidating, but actually once you do it, and the words come up, you'll be able to recognize any time in English. You'll see one of the silent E's, you will be able to recognize it, and you will be able to mark it, and your children will too. Okay, it's just a matter of having understood that there are 5, and how do I recognize them, how do I mark them, all right? Okay, so the first silent E word is time. It is called silent E rule number 1. Silent E rule number 1. All right? We will follow the same process. I will say the word, so please repeat the word. Time.
Time.
We will use it in a Krishna conscious sentence. Okay? When the pujari blows the conch shell, it is time for the artik to begin or time for it to end. Time. Okay? Time. Let us say the sounds on your hands. T. It's the consonant sound T. Next we hear I, the vowel sound I. Then Do we hear the last one? Time. But we have a silent E. There is a silent E. This is silent E, rule 1, time. We heard the T, consonant T. We heard the vowel sound I. We heard the consonant sound Did we hear the silent E? No, we don't pronounce it. This word represents the silent E rule number 1. So we will show you how to write that word in such a way to indicate that this word represents silent E rule number 1. So let us now construct the first phonogram. T, the consonant T. It's a tall letter. Drop the straight line down to the base line, and now we can work more quickly because now we're proficient. Okay, and just above the midpoint, we put a little horizontal line. And you'll start to see once it goes, these words go very fast. 10 minutes of spelling list is very negligible amount of time. The next phonogram sound is the vowel sound. I. In the vowel, notice says its name, right? I. It says I in the word time. So we drop a perpendicular, a straight line down to the base line, and we place a small dot directly above it. We now have T, I. The next sound we hear is the consonant sound. We make that by drawing a straight line from midway down to the base line, retrace up to 10, position on the clock around to 2, and we drop straight down to the base line, retrace up to 10, curve around over to 2, drop straight down on the base line. The last phonogram is not sounded. It's silent E, but it's necessary, and we'll see why. I write the phonogram E. I make a horizontal line that goes from 9 to 3 in the position on the clock with a sharp point on it. Remember, no rounded edges. I go up to 2, go up to 10, go up to the midpoint, around to 10, curve around to 8, go down to the baseline, and come up to 4. I have written the word time. Now, there is a special marking system for silent E rule number 1 words. All right, are you with me? Please pay attention. First, we underline with one line, a single line, the silent E. This rule tells us that if I have a silent E at the end of a word, and just before it there's a consonant, or sometimes you'll find 2 consonants, combination, fixed consonant, and before that there's a vowel. So we're talking now about 3 phonograms. The silent E, the consonant that's just before it, and the vowel that's just before that consonant, right? In English, this E, this silent E, makes the vowel say its name. So we underline all of these three phonograms because they're all important in this rule and explaining this rule. We underline the silent E, we draw a small line under the consonant that precedes it, and we draw another silent E on the vowel that precedes that consonant. The reason we underline all three is that the job of silent E rule number 1 is to make the vowel say its name. Time. The E makes the I say I. If I cover this E up, what do I have? Tim. Without the silent E, which I do not hear, I don't have time. I have a different word, Tim, the name of a boy. You can apply this to many other examples. Fin, the fin on a ship. I'm on a fish. Fin. If I add E, what do I have? Fine. The E changes the first sound of the phonogram, I, to its second sound, I. So rule number 1, the silent E makes the vowel before the consonant say its name. Okay. And you see so many examples. Okay. Trying to think of another one. Pin and pine. Pin and pine, yes, so many. Pin and pine. Pan and pane, window pane. Pane. Any vowel before a consonant, you've add the E. The E, without being sounded, has a job. This is the first rule. It makes the vowel change its sound. You drop that E, you don't have that silent, you don't have that long, that second sound. So we underline the E, at E, we underline the consonant before it, and we underline the vowel that it has changed. Tim becomes time. Silent E rule number 1. So if you introduce a word that has this rule, children underline all three, and they must say silent E rule number 1. Okay? Silent E rule number 2. All right? This rule has a little cheerleader slogan. You know, when we learn this, there's a little rhyme. You know how sometimes you see people in sports, they'll have cheerleading, like in America, they have football games, and there'll be cheerleaders that say, you know, win, win, fight, fight, something like that. Okay, so this one we learn a little slogan. We hold up 2 fingers and we make a V. This one is VU number 2.
VU number 2.
Okay, we'll say it once again. VU number 2.
VU number 2.
Okay. In English, the rule is if a word ends with a V or a U, it must have a silent E. Any word in English, you'll see if there's a V or a U, a silent E is added. Okay? You just start examining English, you probably never gave it much thought, but it is the case. Probably you never recognized or detected this truth. Okay? So we have 2 word samples here for the phonogram V, the V. We have the word sample have, and for the phonogram the U, we have this word sample blue. So we will do both, so that you see V and U number 2. All right. So now, please. I have to use the word in a sentence for you. Have. Okay. Krishna conscious sentence. Have. Say the word have. Have. And we'll have a question sentence again. first sentences we had were telling sentences. Now we have a question sentence. Do you have a new bead bag? Do you have a new bead bag? Have. All right. Let us say the sounds again on our hands. First sound is h. Next sound is ha. Silent E, number 2. Silent E, rule number 2. Do we hear the E?
No.
And does the A say A? Does it say have? No, it says have. That E doesn't, it's not rule 1, is it? It's not rule 1.
It's not saying its
It's
name.
not the same, doesn't do the same thing. VU number 2 does not make the vowel before the consonant say its name. Otherwise, there are some words like gave, where it's both. You see the V, but rule 1 applies. That's the predominant rule. Gave, you have a V. But the E makes the A say A. But in this word, right, in have, it does not. Okay, so let's do the word have. Okay. Upper line, bass line. Are we ready? First phonogram sound we hear is H. We construct it with a tall straight line, and let's move more quickly. Retrace up to 10, over to 2, come back down to the bass line. Second phonogram is A. Oh, we hear the first sound. What do we hear? A. Okay, start at 2, up to the midpoint, around to 10, down to 8, touch the bass line. Over to 4, straight up, back down. Quite touch there. Okay? The next phonogram is the consonant sound, right? And remember how we do that with a single, we don't lift the pencil. We drop the line from midpoint down to the bass line, and when we push up at an angle, right? Have, but we add silent E, rule number 2. VU, number 2. A nice little rhyme there. Okay, we draw horizontal for the silent E from 9 to 3. Sharp point up to 2, up to the midpoint, around to 10, down to 8, touch the bass line, back to 4. Now these other 4 silent E rules are marked a little differently. We put a double line under those. And I believe we put a single line, yes, we put the single line under the V. It's a V. And next to the double line, below the line, we write a number 2. So this is the code for VU number 2, the second silent E rule. The first silent E rule uses only single lines under the 3 phonograms. But from 2, 3, 4, and 5, double line is used under the silent E. Okay? And the number is given, so we know which of the silent E rules is given. So this is an example of VU number 2, and the word example is have. The E is needed because in English, V and U are always followed by a silent E. Unless you find some word as a medical term like that. So, first rule, silent E rule 1, the E makes the vowel before the consonant say its name. In English, VU number 2 rule, silent E is added in English to the V or U at the end of a word, but it does not change the sound of the preceding vowel. Have. Okay. Do we need to stop here? You have a new card? We don't? We're still, anyway, all right. All right. Now we will do the second sample. We will do the word blue. Blue is the sample word for the U in VU number 2. And now we can start to go more quickly. Blue, we'll use the word, repeat the word blue.
Blue.
Blue. And blue, I'll use it in a Krishna conscious sentence. Blue is the color of Krishna, right? Krishna is blue. Blue. The first sound we heard? Blue. Ooh. And remember second sound. I'm sorry, second sound. I was thinking, say a different phonogram. I was thinking of blue on the trumpet. It's the second sound. Actually, it's actually almost saying it. Third third sound almost the third sound. Close to it. Almost the third sound. Sometimes some of these sounds aren't exactly right in all cases. But she uses this word to demonstrate the U. Okay? We draw a tall straight line, drop it down to the base, come back up to 10, over to 2, around to 4, touch the baseline, and up to 8. You will find that in many words the vowel sounds are not exactly the same as the ones given, right? Because often she gives the most frequently used sound. Sometimes you'll find in English there will be some sounds that are even additional, but they're not worth putting into the memorizing them, right? So this one almost doesn't quite fit.
Yes.
Okay. The next phonogram is ooh, right? Ooh. Tall straight line down to the baseline. Notice how your letter formation becomes quite simple once you know the 6 features. It's so simple, and everything is easy to read and obviously easy to remember, as well as easy to spell. Next is the phonogram U. Which could drop down from midpoint with a straight line to 8 position, curve around to the baseline up to 4, go straight up to the midpoint again, dropping down to the baseline with a straight line. Again, you can see, look at your letter formation. Just with those simple features, you have no problem constructing easy to read letters. Now the final phonogram is the silent E, number 2. Again, a horizontal line from position 9 over to 3 with a sharp turn up to 2, to the midpoint, around to 10, down to 8, touch the baseline back to 4. Okay, here's the word blue. We underline the silent E with 2 lines this time, correct? BU number 2 has 2 lines. We put a little 2 next to it to indicate this is rule BU number 2. And we also underline the phonogram AU. And that is how we write this spelling word. BU number 2. Okay. Looks confusing, but once you know what the code means, it's not so bad. Right? Take anything like that. Take Sanskrit. If you don't know the characters, you won't be able to read the language, will you? But once somebody teaches you the characters, then you can decode. So all we're doing is teaching you how to decode this marking system. And the children will learn it just the way they learn an alphabet. They had to learn numbers, they have to learn many complex things. This is not that much more difficult. Okay. BU number 2. Now our third rule is also a little rhyme. CG number 3.
CG number 3.
Right, CG number 3.
CG number 3.
All right, in English, remember we did our phonograms? Kasa and Gaja made 2 sounds, don't they? Right? Kasa, Gaja, they both make 2 sounds. And the rule is, if after Kasa or Gaja there's an E, an I, or a Y, they make the second sound. So if I have a word that ends with Kasa, if I put a C on it, which sound will it have to make? If I have the phonogram Kasa, if I add an E, it has to make what sound? No.
No, it's the same.
It has to make the sound what? S. Right? Because E, I, or Y makes Kasa say its second sound. Do you remember that rule?
Yes.
Right. So if I have Kasa and there's an E following it, what sound must it make? It cannot make K. Right. If I have Gaja and there's an E, I, or Y after it, what sound must it make? Not always, actually. It may make J. There are exceptions. Kasa, no exceptions. Gaja, there are exceptions. Okay? So C, G, number 3. Do you see how these 2 are related? E, right. The E is going to make them say their second sound. Okay? So the sample words are chance and charge. If I don't have the E, I have chank and charg. You see? The E requires that they have their second sound. So we will write those words, and again, it becomes logical. 2 lines with a 3. Right? And why? Because the C or the G have now been given their second sound. I'll make these shorter space because we're getting now into bigger words. So our first word is chance, right? Hare Krishna will say chance, and let's use it in a Krishna conscious sentence. A person who is Krishna conscious knows there's nothing by chance. That nothing happens by chance, including learning spelling. Oh, it just happened. There has to be an intelligence behind everything, right? Nothing. Actually, words like accident and chance are atheistic terms, right? They're atheistic terms because it means there's nobody in control determining what's going to happen, right? Or no. Okay, so the first word is chance. Okay, and the sounds are ch, a, s. Silent E number 3.
Silent E number 3.
So when you present that word, you teach. From this point on, silent E rule number 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1. You just say it, and the children know what to do. Our first phonogram, this is a fixed combination, chakasha. We begin with the first letter of that phonogram. 2, 10, 8, 4, up to, 2, 10, 8, 4, and we have a break, ch. And the second letter in that fixed combination, we drop a straight line down to the baseline, curve up at 10 over to 2, and we come back down. And what do we do to fixed combinations? Who remembers?
Underline.
Correct, we underline the fixed combination. Okay, the next sound we heard is a. On the phonogram, vowel sound, a, first sound of a, starting at 2, over to 10, around to 8, down to the baseline, up to 4, straight up to 2, back down to the baseline. You see how quickly, even repetition becomes quickly, but that mantra goes in really deeply. So every time the child, after a while, is making a letter, in the back of his mind, he's remembering what to do. His hand is being directed by his mind, so he doesn't slip into slovenly handwriting. Ch, a. Next sound we heard is okay, the consonant sound, short straight line from the midpoint, up to 10, over to 2, and back down to the baseline. And you can see how you can start teaching 10 words in practically 10 or 15 minutes without compromising any instructions. You just say them more rapidly. Our next phonogram is ks, 2 sounds. In chance, which sound is it? Second, right? Second sound. Start at 2, up to the midpoint, around to 10, down to 8.